What is up, Pyromaniacs? Pyrostasis is here, and we are in the world of Crusaders of the Lost Idols. A couple things I want to point out real quick. Number one, this is recording on my laptop as my current PC has a fried motherboard again. That will be replaced on Monday. Number two, you're going to notice there's some nasty little black bars over here on the right and the left. That is the way the game plays. I can fix that sort of, to an extent by doing toggle chat, which kind of makes it look a little bit better. Unfortunately, it then truncates some of the stuff right here. So we're going to go, this almost looks better, even though like 25% of the screen, or maybe only 15% of the screen is covered up by this black bar. Since we're not going to be chatting right now, we're going to go with just the garbage stuff. And I know for some of you guys that may twerk you a little bit. I apologize. This is a clicker game. So it's not really meant to be running full screen. It's actually more of an idle adventures game. I'm not actually technically playing the game right now. I'm not actually physically touching anything. It does have sound effects, but because it's my laptop, I do have some issues with sound, and the sound sliders on this are a little twerky. So we're just going to go with this. It's going to be silent, and you guys are just going to listen to me more or less ramble on and tell you about this game. And apparently I just got an email, which is why you're hearing that dink. Sorry for that. Anyways, what is Crusader of the Lost Idols? This is a free-to-play game available on Steam. It's also available on like Congregate, mobile, and several other platforms. And it's your standard idle adventure, time-wasting, passive game. Very similar to something like Adventure Capitalist. And that's not necessarily true. It's more like, I think it's Crusader Heroes or Clicker Heroes. I forget which one it is. I think it's Clicker Heroes. It's very similar in that aspect. The big difference here is you have, and I hate to say this, it sounds a little weird, but you have a ton of content for a clicker game here. Let's go over some of the basics. First off, we are fairly progressed in this game. I wouldn't say fairly progressed. I've got probably like 30 or 40 hours of, 65 hours according to Steam over the past couple weeks playing this game. Keep in mind, that's not me actually with my butt in the seat playing it. It's mainly just running on a second monitor in the background. Kat likes it, and me and her have been enjoying playing it together. So anyways, the way the game works is you have a formation, which is what all of these little guys here, and you have a variety of different heroes. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. 22 heroes. And that's not all. Some of the heroes, let me find one of them if I can visualize him. Here we go. Like Pete the Carney here. You can also swap him out for Jason, Master of Shadows. You can do a bunch of different quests and such that will allow you access to other heroes and champions, which will have different effects. So for instance, Pete, he's got some pretty interesting setups with him. Basically, the way he works is you put him as far away from, like, for instance, if I put him right here, he would increase the DPS of everybody back here. I think it's by like 100%. No, 50%. So yeah, it's a 50% damage increase, which is kind of interesting. So the way the game basically works is you're progressing through all these levels. You can see up here we're on level 108, which we'll be burning through here in a minute. Ooh, that's interesting. Anyways, you can burn through the game. The game basically is limitless. As you progress, the game gets harder and harder. So like right here, we're chewing through this level pretty quick. We're basically insta-popping. I'm going to go ahead and enable auto progression. Auto progression is something that you get when you beat the game the first time and you reset. But if you haven't done that yet, you won't have that ability. So anyways, now that we're progressing, we're going to start bumping into harder and harder mobsters. And while we're just insta-popping things right now, we won't be insta-popping things for long. Now this formation here, for instance, this little guy right here, he's receiving a buff from Curry, which basically keeps him healed 25% of his health every second. He's also getting something from him that increases the base DPS of the panda by 33%. But you'll notice that he's also giving that buff to this guy, to this guy, and to this guy. So the position and the formation of your characters here, I can tweak this. Like for instance, if I think this guy does more damage, I can move him down here, and now he's no longer getting a buff, but these two guys are. Obviously these two do more damage, so I want them getting the buff and ignoring that. And all of these different characters have these different bonuses. You can see right here, some of these guys have bonuses from like all of these different characters. And that's basically what your setup and your goal is to find the quote unquote optimal setup for your characters to burn through the level. You know, you have your characters who are going to heal, your characters who are going to increase damage. You know, I've got this guy who's buffing the base damage of everybody in this column by 55%. This guy's buffing the damage of everybody in this row by 50%. This guy's increasing the damage by 33%, you know, and it starts to really stack up. So you have to find these optimal formations, and every single one of these characters has different abilities. So, you know, what may work for one map may not necessarily work for another, because there are different formations for different maps. And I'm going to show you guys that here in a second. Now, you can see down here, we've got all these different people we can level up. You know, you've got your standard money. This is your DPS. This is how much it costs to level this up. This is what the character's damage is for the actual character himself. And then you can hold your cursor over it and it will tell you how much of a damage increase that's going to give you. Unfortunately, that's raw damage and it doesn't necessarily equate with all the buffs. So it can be kind of hard for you to tell, you know, how much damage you're actually going to kick up. So we're going to do just a little bit here. See if we can't bump this guy up. Okay, we're up to O. I need to go to my other big damage dealer, which is right here, Natalie. She's at S. We're going to get this up till we're at O, basically. There we go, and we'll go ahead and do 2.50. So you can see we've drastically increased our damage. We're back to insta-popping things, as I like to say. The other person we want to level up is Mercy the Wizard. So let's go ahead and throw a few points into him. Now, the key thing about this is once you get to a certain point, you get this ability right here. Every single character so far that I've seen has this. For every 25 levels over and including 200, this character's DPS is multiplied by 4x. This multiplier stacks. So you can see right now, current multiplier for this is 4. So right now, Nate in the back is doing 578Q. I click this button and he goes to 2.31S. If I decide, well, let's go ahead and fix him up a little bit to make him a round number. There we go. If I decide to bump him a bit, so he's at 9.9, so this is going to put him at about, 36? Plus the damage bonus, obviously, from buffs. That kicks him up to 44. If I do it again, that's going to put him at like 160 plus. And you can see how this can rapidly increase your damage, which is, you know, basically the entire point of the game. Let's go ahead and do it one more time. It puts us up to about 15.7 big ass. So you can see our biggest damage dealers are in the middle row here. And obviously that makes sense because that's where most of our buffs are focused on. So it looks like our hermit dude's a little bit on the shit side. Actually, that's not the hermit, that's the lumberjack. So we're going to go ahead and jack him up just a bit. He's at, let's see, he's at 15. We've got 470, 146. So let's go ahead and bump him up a little bit. And now he's kind of in line with the rest of them. Kind of in line. Let's switch back over to Mercy and bump her. Oh yeah, we can bump her significantly, actually. Well, him. I keep calling it a him because the name's Mercy, which makes me think of Mercy from Overwatch, but it's really not. Either way, we just jacked her DPS up to where he is almost good. He's got a damn beard. I need to stop calling it a she. It's just messed up. It's just messed up. Now, what I could do here is I could swap these two. You can see we're at 766S. If I swap these two, we technically gained 30 DPS, but I'm going to move him back here. I don't remember the reason why I had this character here. I think it was because of a heal bonus or something. No, it's because of in the next like 20 levels, Nate stops doing as much damage as Mercy does in the long run. So yeah, it's a little expensive to get him up there now, but over time it gets better. Okay, so you've kind of got the formations idea. Let's go over some of the rest of the stuff. You've got buffs here. Now these buffs are based on the characters that are in your formation. So different characters that you put up here, we're going to give you different abilities. So for instance, you know, we get gold for clicks, we get critical click chance and increases all DPS. We've got one that does 50% of the monster's health in one shot. This one right here is done by the little investigator here, Sherlock Holmes, whatever you want to call him. And it basically increases the effectiveness, which is funny because if you stack it with this, it doesn't quite do 100%. So it's definitely not. There's two types of percentages. One's like multiplicative, and I think one is additive. I never really understood that side of math, but basically it means one is taking 50% and multiplying it times 2 would give you 100 in certain situations, or it would give you a 50% damage increase and then 50% of that 50% damage increase. So like for instance, let's say you were at 1,000 and you multiplied it by 50, that would give you 1,500, and then if you multiplied it by 50 again, it would give you 750 on top of that 1,500, which would put you at 2,250. Does that make sense? That's the difference between multiplicative and additive, I think. I'm sure one of you math wizards will correct me. You also get buffs up here. Now these buffs are a little bit more, they're time oriented as instead of one shot. So for instance, I can boost my DPS by 100% for all of my people for 2 minutes 3 times. And this one is 2 minutes and that's 200%. And then this one's 2 minutes for 400%. So you can use those to kind of burst past certain bosses, because as you progress through the game, the bosses get harder and harder and harder, and it gets really nasty at about, well, I mean, honestly, at 120 it gets pretty nasty when you first start off. As obviously you progress through the game, you can get further and further, and eventually you end up somewhere in like the neighborhood of like 300 or 400 levels, and then at that point, you know, it's ridiculous. So all of this is basically, other than the fact that they've got formations, it is basically a standardized clicker game or clicker heroes, things along those types. There's not a whole lot that kind of differentiates this between some of the competition. So what makes this game special, and why do I think it might be worth covering? And for those of you guys who are into idle and clicker games might want to take a look at it. Well, it does have a lot of extra content. So for instance, you have daily missions here. These missions pop up once a day. And it's not 3 a day, it's 1 a day, I believe. So I haven't played this in like 4 days because things have been crazy with my computer breaking and everything. And I wasn't sure if I moved it over to my laptop, if the Steam cloud would save my save. Thankfully it did. Anyways, so I had 3 of these. So like right here, kill 50 bosses while online, you get 20 gems. This one over here is unlock 50 areas. So that means basically just progress through 50 levels. These are going to give you gems. Gems are a currency right here. Hang on, I'll wait for it to switch loads, which allows you to buy chests. So basically the only thing you can really do with it now, I believe you can also, yeah, this is the only chest we can buy. So you can buy these either with real life cash or you can buy them with gems. If you buy them with cash, you get a bonus. You get a chance to get, or you get this piece of gear. If you buy them with gems, you don't. So obviously they want to encourage you to spend money. I haven't spent a dime on this game and I'm perfectly happy screwing around with it periodically. Keep in mind, these games they're kind of like a fun distraction at like 3 o'clock in the morning when you want to just do something while you're watching Netflix. It doesn't require a whole lot of thought, but at the same time isn't really going to engage you, because like it's one of those guilty pleasure type things, because like the longer I play these, the more annoyed I get with the game until eventually I don't want to play it anymore. You know, I had that problem with RuneScape Idle Adventures, which oddly enough is running on the second monitor. We're not going to talk about that. And then we've got this. So let's get back into it. So opening up these chests, when you open up these chests, they're based on the area and how much money you're making. So you can see right here, I am making, well, I'm at 61.8 gold. So 61.80 gold, which is like several stages beyond trillions. When you open this up, it's going to give you money and items that are basically based around your money. So you can see I'm at 64.0. This just gave me 55.0. That's a pretty big gold boost. That's 111.0. Holy shit. They are giving me some money. And then I got a piece of equipment for one of my characters. Now, because I already have that piece of equipment, it's going to give me a bonus. So there's 2 types of bonuses. There's experience points and there's enchantment points. Enchantment points are when you've already got the weapon and you don't need it, and they add that power to your character. So every time you get one of those, it increases your damage on that character by 25%. Obviously, the longer you play this game, the more stacks of that buff you're going to get, and that just continues to stack up and can get ridiculous. The other buff, let me flip over here till we find a character that I've actually used it on. Here we go, is experience points. Basically, the longer you have a character in your formation, the more damage he does. So right here, I am doing 1.2k%. So that's 1,200% damage because this guy has been in my party for, I guess, 12 hours. Keep in mind, you know, I haven't been, again, haven't been here. I keep feeling the need to tell you guys I don't sit here and play this all the time, but, you know, I feel like some of you might think that, but that's fine. That's fine. So anyways, he's been sitting in my formation for 12 hours. That's a long time. And thus he has all of these percentages. Now, it's not 12 hours. It's actually 5 hours. So 12 times. So because I've left this thing offline for a little bit, it's grown like crazy. So 5 hours times 12, that's what, 50, 60 some odd hours. So it's about what, 3 or 4 days that I haven't logged in. And so because of that, my characters have gotten ridiculously strong. The further I'm away from the game and just let them roam on an area that they can handle, the more it does. Although I have been told if your characters die, that you lose either all or some of your stacks. I have not experienced that though. But I haven't looked at all of the stacks. So like when one of my guys die, I didn't actually take a look at how much we lost. So it's possible that you lose. That's what some of the guys in the chat have said. So let's get back over here. You get chests from defeating boss monsters that you've never beat before, which is every 5 levels, or sometimes you randomly get them when you do beat a boss. So for instance, if I beat this boss up here, there is a chance that I will get a chest. Not a guaranteed, but a chance. And that chest is definitely not going to be one of the higher tier chests. It's just going to be a normal chest. Jeweled chests are the ones you buy with rubies, which give you more stuff. All right, let's talk about idols. Idols are the last thing down here in the bottom left. Idols they're your reset currency. Okay, we're going to lose some people here. Let's go ahead and blow this regen. Yeah, that's going to basically add to the healing. Okay, you can see we did not get a chest there. We had a chance of getting a chest, but we didn't get that one. I'm going to go ahead and stop progression here. We should be able to progress a little bit longer, but I'm going to stop it here. Well, let's let it keep going because we can go a little bit further. Let's spend a little bit of our money so that we can go. Let's see, 29.0. Oh yeah. And we'll do 160. That's going to bump up our damage. The cool thing about this is once you start multiplying these by 4, you start really getting drastic damage upgrades because you're basically increasing your DPS by 25 or 4 times every time you pull it. And some of these guys are a large bulk of your DPS. Yeah, he's at 11 or 11S, so I don't think upgrading this guy is going to do me much good. Yeah, he's starting to kind of fizzle out for now. It's just the cost of increasing him is not keeping up with the amount of stuff that we need to do, which is fine, All right, so let's talk about idols. And that's one of the things we're fixing to show you guys here in a minute. All right, so you can see I have 204 idols, and then in parentheses or brackets or what are those called? Are those parentheses? Yeah, those are parentheses. We have 6. So, you know, it's been a long time since you've been in school when you forget what, those aren't parentheses, are they? Shit. Parentheses? No, those are quotation marks. Yeah, those are parentheses. I'm thinking quotation marks, and for some reason I'm thinking parentheses or quotation marks. Please stop laughing at me. I can hear you. I have no excuse. I'm just bad. Anyways, the number here is basically unspent, and the number here is spent. Unlike a lot of clicker games, when you invest think of Angels from Adventure Capitalist. You invest those, and when you invest them, they're gone. You lose them. Well, here, when you invest them, you do not lose them. So they just continuously add on, and you buy other things. And you're thinking, well, like, doesn't that make things overpowered? Yes and no. They've obviously planned for it. It's built into the game, and it makes it more challenging. I'm going to stop it here because I don't want to do that boss yet. Okay. These over here are your items, and I'll go into idols and how you get them here in a second. These items are just items you get from chests. They're gear pieces. There's 2 types of gear. There's individual gear for individual people. Like right over here, I've got, where's my epic on this dude? I've got this epic right here, which increases this guy's DPS base by 400%. This is a very rare item, tough to get. You will slowly over time start acquiring these gear pieces for your individual characters, which will drastically boost their effectiveness. That plus, you know, the enchantments plus the experience points, and you can end up with some pretty ridiculous numbers. But anyways, on top of that gear, you have this gear over here. And so these can stack up. I don't know how many rings you can wear. I mean, like these guys, I mean, obviously I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 10 people here, 10 people with 10. So I guess I could wear 100 rings if everybody wore 1 on each finger. And then I guess we could do toes and other various body parts if we wanted to. You've got horns, which increase damage and do different things. Some of them give you gold. Some of them do damage. Some of them are cooldown. Some of them are click damage. There's a lot of different types of buffs that you can get. So these accumulate over time and they're kind of an aggregate bonus. This right here, each one of the idols that you get is a 3% damage increase. So because I have 204, it's a, 612% damage increase. So adds up. How do you get idols? And the gear you get all that from chests. You get idols by resetting the game. And the way resets work is down here. The last guy you get, Nate Dragon, which is this dude right here, you use his ability here and it basically resets the world. Every 500 levels that you have on one of your guys or your critters or your people increases the idol by 1. So right now if I reset, I'm going to get 21 idols, which is 21 times 3 is an extra 60% damage. Now, I'd like to extend that. You're going to notice I have 2 icons here, which you guys will not have when you first start off. These are talent points, which I'm fixing to show you guys here in a second. One of the things I do have here is the ability to click this button, and it's going to maximize the amount of gold that I can spend to get a level. So for instance, we're at 5.8 in. Now this is not, I believe that this button maximizes based on cost. So it tries to buy the most levels on the most characters for the least amount of money. But it doesn't increase your DPS all that much because you're buying, obviously, 1, you're buying characters that are not in your formation. And 2, you may be buying on support characters like, her or him that don't necessarily do damage. I mean, you can see these guys are doing 8999Q. These guys are doing 8.10S or 8.10. There's a lot of... That's the difference between like doing 100,000 damage or doing 1 billion or 1 trillion damage. It's pretty significant. So you're not going to be making as much damage increases. But once you kind of get up to this point and you're fixing to do a reset, you don't necessarily care about your damage. You want to click this. So look here, we've got, let's see, 1 idol per 500 levels. We're at 21 idols or 10,614 levels. Let's go ahead and click this, 10,614 levels. You can see we just went up 3,800 levels. We went from 21 to 27 idols. That's a pretty big increase. However, we did not increase all that much when it came to actual physical damage. So you're going to notice we're not killing critters much faster. So if you are focusing on damage, obviously you're going to want to be focusing on the DPS on these guys directly. I'm going to go ahead and kick this one over to 50 so that we can get it. If you're OCD like me, you're probably not going to use this button very often until you're almost ready to end things. Because it just drives you nuts. You're more interested in doing the 4x because, every time I level this guy 25 levels or this girl or this one, it increases my damage significantly. Whereas if I buff the rest of these guys, I don't get much. So it just depends on what your quote unquote goal is. We're going to go ahead and defeat this boss. So I did mention that these are something that you're not going to have available. These 2 buttons are not going to be available to you until you progress. These buttons are talents. You buy talents with idols. You have to manage to get past room 150 on any of the levels. That's right. There's more than just 1 level in this, and I'm going to show you guys that here in a second. So basically you acquire idols, you spend them, you gain buff, and then you gain other buffs. Well, let's look at the talents. We click this little button right here, and hopefully that pauses the game. I'm not sure if it does. It looks like it is because we're not, well, maybe not. So I'm going to have to be careful. Okay, so here there are 3 trees, active, passive, and utility. Each of these trees do different things, and then you can see the first one right here is area 150, this one is area 300, and this one down here is area 600. You can also see that each of these cost different idol prices. So for instance, if I want to raise this and give myself an extra click chance, it's going to cost me 20 idols per pop. Whereas this one's going to cost me 100 and this is going to cost me 500. So obviously as you progress, you're going to spend more and more idols to get more and more benefits. And these do start off pretty, I mean, like what, 1% extra critical click chance is like, you don't really care about that so much. But as that progresses and gets, additive and multiplicative or whatever, it does get to the point where it starts to significantly add up. So all of that is kind of cool, and that alone for most clicker games is where they end up. Let's look at some of the other cool things they've got. I mentioned the daily quest here, but you're also going to see that we have missions over here. These are available missions that we can do that are completely different. These are, if you play World of Warcraft Legion, then these are basically like the missions that you do at your map and such. They allow you to send some of your people out, and the only ones that you see down here are the ones that aren't in your party. So you can see, you know, we've got 1 day, we got 2 days. This one's going to give us a jewel chest. This one's going to give us holiday Crusaders, which I actually have no idea what are. We can get lots of gold. We can get a variety of things. So, and you can also see that some of these expire in a certain amount of time. So if we want to, we can fire these up. We can do them. I'm going to hold off on doing these for now because I'm going to show you something else and it's going to kind of counteract the whole thing. But this one right here, this Gitavis Consumer of Worlds, you can see that this one would take 1 day and you can see all of these different buffs here. Now, unlike what might happen in World of Warcraft, you do actually have to fill in all of these slots to get people to come. So like if we want, we put all of these dudes in, you can see we have a 45% chance, which is not all that good. So obviously you want to kind of look at what you need to kind of fill in some of these debuffs. And the more of these debuffs that you basically knock out, the better your chances of being able to accomplish this event are. And you might have to use some of your different heroes because, you know, some of these are like healers, you need support, you need, you know, damage, you need all this different stuff. Now that's a hard one. And then we've got easy ones. So like, for instance, this is a 20-minute one. You can see this one just like, just freaking easy. You know, it doesn't really, 83 chance. Very easy to do. So these daily missions, well, those aren't dailies. Those are just randoms. The daily missions plus the random events there gives you plenty to kind of work towards while you're doing the rest of this stuff. And it gives you that, you know, almost active gameplay style. You know, there's a lot to do here if you so choose. So we're going to go ahead and do a reset here just so I can show you guys. Let's see, where are we at money-wise? Let's flip back over. We're at 27 idols. We're at 3.83 in. Let's go ahead and click this again. How many again? 27? All right, we'll click it again. Boom. All right, that knocks us. Wow, we didn't gain. We're still just a little shy. Now keep in mind that zaps pretty much all of our cash. So it that's going to be pretty freaking expensive. And obviously the more you do it, it's going to take you a while to kind of build back up in levels. And obviously the more you level everybody, the more it's going to get to the point where you're just spending so much money to get more idols, when if you just do a reset, you can get back to where you are faster because you're doing more damage and then you can earn idols that way. So it's kind of better not to just keep forcing it and to just do a reset once you get to that point where you're really slowing down. Okay, so once you decide to reset, how do you do it and what do you have? Well, let's go ahead and blow this one more time. There's no reason for us to keep our money. There we go, burnt. Let's go ahead and click reset. It's going to give us 28 idols for 14,000 Crusader levels. That's good. Click reset and it pulls up this really cool button where you get to destroy the world. Which, if that's your thing, rock and roll. Okay. World destroyed. It's going to tell us how many levels that we had cumulatively across all of our heroes, how many idols, et cetera, et cetera. And then if we had done a quest, it would have showed whether we passed or failed that quest and what we got for that. So these are yet another objective that you can do in this game. Now, remember I told you there were different worlds. There are, and there's also different formations. So for instance, you know, you can kind of scroll down here and you can see that I have currently access to 2 worlds, and these down here are not currently accessible to me. You can also see that some of these formations have a lot more than 10 people. Like this formation right here is ridiculous. That's what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people in this one. This one's what, 3 times 4 is 12, 13, 14. It's a lot of heroes. And each of these have their own objectives. Now, some of them are pretty simple. Some of it is just, you know, like this one right here is just reach to level 200. Some of them, though, are pretty ridiculous. Like, for instance, this one right here, it gets rid of your entire back row. So you have to get to area 100 without a back row. So that makes you have to completely change your formation. So what you would have normally done rather easily now becomes a lot harder, because for me personally, my back row is the ones that buff my DPS row, which is right here. And so with this change, you know, I basically have to either I can compress my row a little bit to where basically I move my support row to my 3rd row, my DPS row to my 2nd row, but then I'm losing 1 support character and 1 DPS. Now, to an extent, that's not going to be too evil, but at the same time, I also lose 2 buffers up in the front. So, you know, you kind of start to realize how some of these things could really affect and change the way the game plays. This one right here, you lose the top and 2 of the back. And all of these have different restrictions that they will give you and benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So Some of these will give you different champions, will give you different heroes. Some of them will just give you rubies. There's a lot of different things to do. And for some of these, you have to unlock before you get here. So for instance, to get to this thing unlock, I believe, yep, it says right here, you must have 300 idols. So to get to this one, you must have complete Yo-Ho-Ho bottle of rum and must have 500 plus idols. So as you progress through the game, some of these are going to open up. I'm going to go ahead and start a 200 on base just to kind of make progress. Take it a second to load up. And this is probably going to be the closest to what you guys can expect. Obviously, I've got an auto clicker running right here. This character is the default character that you start with. Probably not going to use him for very long. There we go. And then I can just click up my formation and we're good to go. And we'll turn on auto progression so that we move along. So the nice thing about this, is when you do your second round, you're going to auto progress pretty quickly. I mean, I'm basically insta popping these guys. You do have monthly quests that open up. So this is October's event where these characters have different buffs and these buffs do different things. You also have the chance to get a unique chest. It tells you how long it lasts. And, you know, if you're into the item shop stuff, you can buy special chests for that event that have, you know, special things in them. Again, if that's your cup of tea. But you can definitely play this game without doing any of that stuff if that is your cup of tea. And, you know, if you do like spending money on the game that you enjoy for free, then, you know, rock and roll, there's plenty of options there for you as well. One other thing I did want to point out real quick is the formation saving option down here. As you progress through the game, there's going to be different maps at different times you're going to want, especially as you get higher up, you're going to want to have different formations. Like, for instance, there might be a formation that sucks at doing maybe AoE damage, but maybe there's a fight where a ton of critters come at you all of a sudden, or maybe there's one where you actually need click damage, or maybe you need to do this, or maybe you need to do that, more buffs, more damage, etc., etc. There are different builds that you can use, and you can basically press this button and it will more or less load them up, and you can save them right here. And the cool thing about those is they're based on each map. So right here I'm doing the default map, which is kind of nice. If I was doing one of the more advanced maps, then it would have its own set of formations that are completely separate. So this gives you the ability to, you know, save your formations based on your map, do some theory crafting. And then the other cool thing about it is, let's say you got two formations and you like both of them, but you're not sure which one does better damage. You can load them both up and then swap back and forth to them pretty much instantaneously and kind of see, oh, okay, this one does better, this one does worse, etc., etc. And that allows you to kind of, well, I guess I can just push that button, he'll move in the right spot. That allows you to kind of theory craft and play around. There is a fairly active chat in this game that I showed you guys earlier that I disabled. There's also, you know, tips and tricks on the Steam forums. Congregate seems to have a lot of stuff there. I didn't really find the Reddit very helpful. And a lot of stuff, unfortunately, because of the way the game progresses, you know, you have a lot of people talking about formations with champions that you as a beginner are not going to have access to, you know, doing areas that you don't have access to, et cetera, et cetera. And that kind of makes things a little difficult for you starting out because you just literally don't know, you know, the best way to go about certain things, and you kind of have to play around with it. But I did find a couple formations from like a year ago, 2 years ago, that kind of helped me out. So I don't know. Like I said, it's a fun game. It's laid back. You know, you can play this on a variety of different formats. I believe they've got them all synced. There is a sync option right here. I don't know if that's like Steam and Congregate or maybe even Steam and mobile, but there's a way to link your different accounts back and forth so that you can play on multiple platforms. So like I said, I don't know if that means mobile and Steam together and they'll sync back and forth. If it does, that would be amazing, because then you could, you know, play on your computer, and then when you go to bed, you know, you can lay in there and play for a little bit. It's completely cool if that's how it works. I'm not sure. I just play on the PC. So, but I did want to show you guys this game. You know, I know clicker games aren't really something that a lot of people like. And in all honesty, it's one of those things that I usually play for about a week and then I get kind of bored of. But there is obviously an audience for it. There are people that enjoy it. And as far as clicker games go, it's kind of like one of those caveats. It's like, you know, if you're going to have to eat your vegetables, which vegetable you want to eat, you know? And that's kind of what I say about this clicker game is, you know, yes, clicker games, they're kind of shallow on the gameplay. They do, in my opinion, tend to be heavily microtransaction oriented, and they're basically designed to waste your time, which is kind of cool if that's what you're looking for, but can be insanely frustrating if you're not. This one at least is very unobtrusive with its microtransactions. I feel like you can get a lot of the game without having to spend a dime. In fact, I feel you can play the entire game without having to spend a dime. And I believe as far as clicker games go, you know, with that caveat, as far as clicker games go, this one has just a ridiculous amount of content. So, you know, if clicker games are your thing, I strongly recommend this one. Again, it's called Crusaders of the Lost Idols. It's free to play. It's on Steam. Take a look at it. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments section below. Would love to hear from you guys. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Why? You know, is there another clicker game that you prefer? Feel free to let me know, because odds are I'm probably going to be playing a few clicker games this weekend while I wait for my main PC to come back. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, slap that like button. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next clip.